I'm really excited to be bringing you a video on Thousand-Year-Old Vampire. This is a journaling RPG, I guess is the phrase for it, and not necessarily typical of the kind of RPG that I play. Generally speaking, I don't play kind of written or journaling RPGs. However, once I learned of the existence of this game, as we look at the credits here, I became extremely interested in playing it because I have a very long-standing interest and history with the story of vampires, dating back to the original appearance of the vampire myth in novels, which is with Varney the Vampire. And if you've watched my channel, you've seen me actually use this book, Varney the Vampire, before. And what this video is going to do is I'm going to play through a game here. Before I do that, though, in the first part of the video, I am going to just give you a look inside some of the apparatus of this story. And then the second part of the video is going to be me playing through it. And there are instructions here at the beginning. I haven't really looked through it that much because I wanted to just kind of preserve my experience of the content of this fresh for the video. So I've never played it before. I've just looked through the first few pages here, and I do want to say a few things. Well, first of all, the reason the video is in two parts is because for those who don't wish to explore or know about the prompts or the questions that are actually in the game itself, you wouldn't want to watch the second part of the video. So this part is going to be spoiler free in that regard. The second reason is just to give perhaps more of a sense of the content of the structure of the game for those who want to make a decision about whether this is something for them. And a few points to make on this. Following the lead of the author that it says here, it says, when playing this game, you'll encounter themes of death, selfishness, and predation. Your character may be injured, victimized, trapped, or killed. Your character will murder and victimize people of all sorts. And it goes on to talk about other things that could happen in the game that may be offensive or of concern to people. So it says here, this is a personal, challenging game for mature adults. Please play hard, but stay aware of yourself and your feelings. Some good thoughts about safety in solo games can be found in Appendix 3. We'll look at that. In this game, you chronicle the unlife of a vampire over the many centuries of their existence, beginning with the loss of mortality and ending with their inevitable destruction. This vampire will surprise you as they do things that are unexpected, unpleasant, and sometimes tragic. Making gut-turning decisions, performing irreconcilable acts, and resolving difficult narrative threads are what this game is about as you explore the vampire's human failings, villainous acts, and surprising victories. Game mechanics are simple and intuitive. Play progresses semi-randomly through the prompts section of this book. Answer prompts to learn about your vampire's wants and needs, to learn what challenges they face, and to chart their decline into sentience. Build up a character record of memories and then lose them to the inexorable crush of time. See everyone you've loved and hated grow old and die, and then turn to dust. It says you need a D10 and a D6 to play. If you lack dice, there are random number tables in Appendix 2. It says that you need a way to record your vampire story. In a quick game, you need only a few pieces of paper to maintain a character record, but in the journaling game, you might fill a whole diary. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to attempt to play through a whole game and therefore be relatively quick in the narrative descriptions. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have a sense of the possibility of doing that yet because, as I said, I have not really looked through this at all. The appendix also has multiplayer rules, safety tools which let you push yourself as hard as possible, alternate prompts, examples of play, and some context for the creation of the game itself. I'll probably leave those to you to discover on your own. Your vampire. The vampire whose chronicles you will record in this game is represented by 5 different traits: memories, skills, resources, characters, and marks. Almost every time you receive a prompt, one of your traits will be modified. For instance, you may be instructed to check a skill To do this, you place a check mark next to that skill. Alternatively, the prompt may cause you to lose a trait, which is indicated by striking it out with a line. Ensure that the lost trait stays readable because you may refer back to it later or even restore it. Some prompts will give even more dramatic instructions for changing your traits. At all times, follow the instructions given in the prompt. Memories and experiences make up the core of the vampire's self. These are the things that they know about. Almost every prompt will create an experience, and experiences eventually combine with one another to become memories. This makes sense. An experience should be a single evocative sentence. An experience is the distillation of an event, a single sentence that combines what happened and why it matters. It gives you a suggestion of a good format, a description of the event and how I feel or what I did about it. And then memories themselves are made up of experiences. A memory is a container for experiences that are related in some way. It gives you some example of this. A memory can contain up to 3 experiences, and your vampire is allowed 5 memories. So we'll need to refer back to this. And once you have memories, instead of losing them, you can move it into a diary. And we have, throughout this book, lovely evocative art. Then it says a diary can hold up to 4 memories. So we can see the strands of the information bank, as it were, of the diary. Skills describe the capabilities and characteristics of your vampire. They indicate what your vampire can do and what they might do. And when instructed to record a new skill, you should relate it to the context of the prompt. Some prompts will instruct you to check a skill. It explains how to do this. Again, I'm not really clear on exactly what this means yet because I haven't played the game, but just trying to give you the overview. Resources are assets or structures that are useful to your vampire or items that they value. And again, it gives some examples here. In the prompts, there will occasionally be reference made to stationary resources. These are possessions that cannot be physically hauled away with the vampire. Examples might be a haunted cave. So these are things in the environment. Characters are the people whom your vampire has a relationship. Each character should be named and described in a sentence fragment. Add more descriptions each time you interact with them. A character can be mortal or immortal. You will be told which type when you are instructed to create a new character. Mortals are regular human beings. Immortals are supernatural. Marks. A mark is an indication of your vampire's undying state or any other thing that sets them apart from mortal people. An ever-bleeding wound on the throat, eyes that are blank and white, etc. And they give some examples. When creating a mark, consider whether your vampire conceals it and how. And it gives some examples here. What is a vampire? The vampire is the character you will follow through the narrative. How they manifest their vampiric nature is up to you, but the game makes several assumptions. To get the best experience out of this game, your vampire should do these following things. Prey on human beings for sustenance. Seek to camouflage themselves among those on who they feed. Should have been a human once and still have human needs in one sense or another. Should be susceptible to environmental dangers. Should be practically immortal. Should be mostly a loner. The prompts in Thousand-Year-Old Vampire are not necessarily geared toward complex political machinations between factions of immortal beings. So again, it's very much directing you in this regard to, it's a single solo loner type of game, the way the Mythical Vampire is a single solo loner mythical type of creature. Start by imagining, for vampiric creation, start by imagining a person in the distant past, a Roman emperor, a Mesopotamian midwife, a French knight. This person will become your vampire. Imagine when and where they were born and who they were in life. Start a memory with one experience that encapsulates their history. For instance, I am Henry, son of John, born near the Loire Valley in the 13th century of our land. I am a poor knight swindled out of my inheritance. The first experience is a little different than most in that it's a broad summary of the vampire's life before becoming an undead thing. This experience will be slotted into the character record's first memory. Now, this brings up a question as to, is there what type of sheets they are. This is pretty cool in the back here. But obviously I'm not going to be writing in this book. Oh, these are, oh, this is cool. That's a random number chart. Not terribly practical to use, but actually very cool in terms of its presentation. So walking through this, playing the game. To play, you answer a series of prompts. Answer these prompts to learn about your experience, and the additional prompts in the appendix are after, I guess, you've played the game multiple times to enhance the replay value. You can answer prompts either in writing like a journal or just aloud to yourself. This book is designed so you can write your experiences directly on its pages if you are brave, and we'll just can see these. There are spaces here for that. Obviously, I am not going to do that, but it's cool that you could. In the process of answering, you create, lose, and alter your vampire's traits as instructed. Every time you answer a prompt, you must create an experience and add it to a memory unless instructed otherwise. You're rolling these numbers to indicate, so you're basically rolling a d10 and a d6 to indicate whether you're moving forward or backward in time, in essence. So we'll take a look here, for example, and it says you are subtracting your d6, which here was a 2, versus your d10, which here is a 9, and so that would be a positive 7, but of course so you're going to be moving forward that many of prompts, and then if it's a negative number, you would move backwards, and of course that could happen. Well, there I got a 1, but of course that could definitely happen, and if that was a 1, we would be moving back 2. If you roll ultimately a 0, you do the same prompt a second time. You'll notice that prompts have second and third entries. These are encountered the second and third times you land on a prompt. If you have already been to that prompt, you move forward 1. If you're instructed to check a skill, but have no unchecked skills available, lose a resource instead. Likewise, if you cannot lose a resource when instructed to do so, check a skill. When either of these substitutions occur, it indicates that things have gone very badly from your vampire. Narrate the worst possible outcome. Only skills and resources may be substituted for each other. You may not choose to lose characters' memories or marks in place of a skill or resource. If you must lose a skill or resource and you have none, then your game is over. Narrate your vampire's demise using the prompt for inspiration. The game ends if you are unable to check or lose a skill or resource when required to do so, or if a prompt tells you that the game has ended. And here we have some more art. It gives different styles of play suggestions. In a quick game, answer the prompts entirely in the memory area of your character record. This method is fast and satisfying and gives you greater flexibility in interpreting your story. In the journaling game, you keep a diary, and we talked about that earlier, where you are placing things in basically a longer journal entry. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be focusing on the quicker game. There's some instructions on answering prompts in a way that feels natural. Don't force things. Prompts will also often combine to tell stories. Well, that's obviously the point of this game. Cede control to the game. Prompts are sparks for creativity and connection. Feel free to gently reinterpret answers to earlier prompts to make better sense of things. Overthinking is unhelpful. Be uncomfortable. Your protagonist is a vampire, even if you try to keep them decent and humane. Terrible and delicious things are going to happen. You should have moments of discomfort as prompts combine with constrained resources to result in your vampire murdering loved ones and performing strange deeds. Prompts are opportunities to learn about the history and the real world, and it's making some suggestions for doing that. And here we get to the main part of the book, which is like about, so all of these pages of the book are the prompts, and then starting with the appendix here, there's alternate prompts. So the bulk of the book, as you can see, are the prompts, and then we get to this appendix on random numbers, and then interesting question here with an interview of the designer that I think I probably am not going to have the time to turn to. Here we see the character record. Okay, let's see. This is a game to play in a notebook or on a large white wall or on a scroll, ancient and lengthy. Well, that would be cool. Just know it's not practical to use a single sheet of paper because your vampire's memories will quickly outgrow it. Nonetheless, on the next page, you'll find a character sheet. Do with it what you will. So here are some, here's that. Probably not going to be used per se, so we'll get out a notebook and figure that out. While I'm here looking at the credits page, that's in Appendix 8 of the book, Modestly Speaking, game design, layout, and collage by Tim Hutchings, and the rest of the credits here. And at the front, actually, I think I already showed this, but this says that it was begun in 2018, completed 2019, and distributed in 2020. This is the second printing of the book. So with that introduction, we're going to turn to what we'll review here. We start counting at prompt 1 on the next page. From henceforth in this video, we're going to be actually creating our vampire and playing our vampire. I will say that from the perspective of my gameplay, you will perhaps note certain directions I'm not going to take in my gaming, but it's a vampire, so there's definitely going to be some murder. And so we begin. We begin by creating my vampire. We're imagining a person in the distant past, and the first experience, the first memory of my character is, her name is Annie, and she was born in the Croft House of a Scottish estate hundreds of years ago. Her mother had been defiled by the Laird and only allowed to remain on the estate as meager compensation for that defilement. My mother was a kitchen scullery maid who had her life ruined by the Laird of the estate. We are next instructed to create at least 3 mortals and add them to the vampire's record sheet. These mortals will have a relationship with our vampire, relatives, friends, lovers, enemies, etc. So our characters, our mortals, are going to be, well, first of all, her mother, who is still around. Her mother's name will be Agnes, and she will also have a friend, a child, another child of a worker on the estate. He'll be like a char boy or something like that, who works in the estate itself, keeping the fires going, and his name will be Henry. And let's see, her third, well, their relationship is the Laird. The Laird is her absolute enemy. He is the lord of the manor, and he will be Lord Dumbarton, and he is a villainous, vile creature who, as mentioned, defiled her mother. Give your vampire to be 3 skills fitting their lot in life and 3 resources they obtained while still mortal. And I guess we can have any skills we want. Well, for her first skill, we're just going to do, so we've got skills and resources. Her first skill is going to be that she is sneaky. She knows her way around. She was raised kind of in the shadows, and as such knows her way around the estate, how to get places. So she has a high sneaky skill, and her other skill is going to be, she is skilled at, what shall we say, we'll call it hand warfare, meaning she knows through the use of just her person how to kill, say, small animals and things of that nature. And of course, working in and around her mother, who was in the kitchens, she knows poison. So she is skilled in the arts of, we'll call the natural dark arts. So she'll be able to do things like create poisons or work with nature to help her through the world. She has 3 resources she obtained while she was still mortal, and one of these resources will be, well, she'll have a kitchen knife for sure. and she'll have some poisonous mushrooms, and she's going to have a trinket, and the trinket that she will have is something belonging to the Laird that her mother stole from the bedroom of the Laird, or the castle of the Laird, and we don't really know. Maybe it's a locket. Let's call it a locket. So she's going to have a trinket. It's a trinket to her, probably, and more important, a locket to belonging to the Laird, and create three more experience, with one experience being entered into a separate memory. So our memories are different themes, and the first memory that she's going to have, this is going to be a theme of sort of the meager happiness that she had in her life. And one of those, let's see, each of these experiences should combine two of your vampire's traits. Well, her traits are sneaky, her hand warfare, and her poison. Well, this is slightly confusing because we haven't actually encountered the word trait before. I don't know if that refers to a skill or a resource. The example here is slightly confusing. It looks like I'm gonna tie this memory to actually the resource, and the happy memory is going to be of a time when Henry and Agnes were playing together, or romping together as they were hidden. So she's using her sneaky resource, hiding in the wilds of the estate, and he gave this kitchen knife to her that he had stolen for her protection. So one of her memories is of happy one, where she obtains the kitchen knife from Henry, and this is an important symbol to her of some connection. She's not really a very connected person. So that is one memory of a happy type of memory, a theme of happy memory. The next theme is going to be a theme of survival, and that aspect of the memory is going to be that she was out wandering on the estate as a adolescent, and one of the Laird's sons had his eye on her, just in the kind of predatory way that the Laird attacked Annie's mother, Agnes, and she was able to survive that by sneaking away and hiding from the Laird's son. So her first memory, or a big memory in terms of her survival, is the attempt to avoid the same thing happening to her that happened to her mother. And the theme of the third memory is going to be a connection. It's going to be a family memory to her mother. And her mother is still working, toiling away. But her third memory, the theme of her third memory is going to be power. That she is going to have a memory of being by herself, collecting some mushrooms that she learns about as having poisonous impact, and figuring out that she can poison rabbits and other animals with them. So it's going to be of her increased knowledge about bending nature to her will, basically, and feeling the power of that. So those are her three separate memories, and we're going to continue on. It says, lastly, create an immortal. This is the creature that gifted or cursed your vampire with unlife. And finally, it says, lastly, create an immortal. This is the creature that gifted or cursed your vampire with unlife. Well, in the case of Annie, this is going to be a mysterious relative of the Laird who visited her in the Croft house one night. And of course, she feared the worst when he arrived, but she struggled against him. And indeed, he grabbed her by the shoulders and said to her that he was tormented and trying to repent the sins of his ancestors for taking more than just the innocence of her mother, but indeed taking the land from the original people who lived here, and he was so tormented. She struggled against him, and he said he could feel the good in her, and he could feel the effort to the struggle that she was having between the happy positive memories and the power that she got from the land, and he wanted a companion in his fight to retain and regain the estates from the other part of his family, and as such he was going to make her his own, to live with him forever. And he, biting into her neck, gave her the gift or the curse of immortality, and his name is, so the theme here is her immortality, and his name is Sir Charles, attempting to be her companion forever. And the mark that he left upon her is a mark on her shoulders that she keeps covered, and not too difficult to do with the attire of the time and of her station. All right, and now we begin with prompt 1 on the next page, and we will start our story here. We have our 2 dice that we'll be using. And in your blood hunger, you destroy someone close to you. Kill a mortal character. Create a mortal if none are available. Take the skill Bloodthirsty. Okay, so a few points here. We're going to add Bloodthirsty to a different page, and I think based on the story here, we are going to start our rampage by lashing out against Henry the Charboy, our friend, because we have this happy memory of him giving us this knife, this kitchen knife, to protect us, but we begin to suspect, as the impact of Sir Charles's bite and assault on us takes hold, and as the power of his blood courses through our veins, that in fact our friend Henry the Charboy gave us this knife. He himself must have had knowledge of what was coming, and in an effort to protect us gave us that knife. But now we are turning on him, and we are sneaking into the shed in which he sleeps in the night, covered up with a meager oilskin cloth, and we take the knife that he gave us and we stab him relentlessly until he is no more. And now we roll, well, so we're going back. Well, right away I've rolled something for which there is not an explanation, because I can't go back -4. So I think we'll just move down here, because the lowest we can get to is 1. So hopefully that's what's meant to happen. We are overcome by panic and maul someone close to you, accidentally turning them into a monster like yourself. Convert a beloved mortal character into an enemy immortal. Take the skill Ashamed. Well, obviously, in this case, what has happened, not that much time has passed indeed, when we are stabbing Henry to death, we create a noise despite our best efforts, and our mother, Agnes, comes rushing in her goodness, attempting to protect whoever is being assaulted or attacked, and she sees us and turns in horror, and with a rush of just visceral response, we rush at her and we maul her, and we, in a tormented mother-daughter scene of the ultimate struggle, turn her into an immortal, and she lays almost lifeless in our arms as the remaining shreds of our humanity bring up sobs of release and pain and anger, such that only a daughter could feel toward her mother, as the mother lies there lifeless in us. And we do feel ashamed, and we have the skill now, Ashamed. Moving forward, we are going to move forward positive 4 here. You murder someone you love or respect rather than let them expose you. Kill a character. Check a skill. If you have no living characters, kill no one and create a beloved mortal character who you have betrayed. Well, we do have the one living character left at this point, which is the Laird, but this is actually not somebody we love or respect. So if you have no living characters, kill no one and create a beloved mortal character who you have betrayed. This I already killed. I already killed the characters I loved. So I guess I'll still check the skill. It's a little not totally sure of what to do. But instead, I will create a beloved mortal character who you have betrayed. And in this case, this will be my Annie's sister, Agatha. Agatha is Annie's sister, and she witnessed, or she is left in as now Annie and her mother, Agnes, go off, and they must leave this estate for now, leaving behind Agatha, the sister, who has been betrayed by Annie. And so that is who I created here, and we did put a mark. We checked the skill. Now I realize I'm answering a prompt. I need to put the memory of killing my mother into this. Well, we're going to put the memory of killing Henry into the power memory spot, the theme of power, and the killing of our mother, or the turning of our mother into an immortal with us. We're going to, in a very twisted way, that is going to be a happiness memory because we are bringing our mother with us. So we're going to be accompanied by her. All right, and then we're instructed to check the skill, and on this, I'm going to check the skill of ashamed because we are going to be ashamed of having done that. So that is the skill that we used up there, and now we're going to move on, and we will move on. We're going to move back one here. You are exposed and flee to a neighboring region, losing any stationary resources. We didn't have any stationary resources. Check a skill. A mortal flees with you. What new name do you adopt among these strangers? Well, I think Agatha will flee with us. So the skill that we're going to check off here is sneaky, because though we were exposed, we failed in the sneaky skill, I guess, so we used that skill in a way. And Agatha is going to flee with us, so we have Agatha, and Agatha, our sister, is fleeing with us, and we need to lose our name, Annie. We need to find a new name. Our new name is going to be Catherine, and we are going to attempt at this point to show up in a new place, in a higher station than we previously were. And we have to go back -3. We're back to number 1, as far back as we can go. And before we're able to establish ourselves, we are captured and enslaved by a wicked and powerful supernatural entity. Create an immortal character. How do you eventually escape their servitude? Check a skill and take the skill. Humans are cattle. So, all right, let me strike out all mortal characters as 100 years have passed. So let me think about this. So basically what happens is we escape to another part of Scotland, even more remote part, and along the way we raid the villages that are along the way using our poisonous mushrooms and knowledge of the natural world to slowly accrue the one prized possession of the villagers. So from one hut we take a silver spoon that had been handed down from another, one piece of nice linen that had been stolen from a nearby estate, slowly piecing together enough to raise us up just slightly in our station, and our sister Agatha becomes our lady in waiting, as it were. And we appear in the new town, a slightly larger town, and make our way to an inn and catch the eye of a stable boy who is out for a drink, and he brings us back to the estate, presents us to his father, who is the man in waiting for the laird of that estate, and we have made our way all the way up into the castle to become the consort of this laird. However, he turns out to be an evil immortal character, and he is the Laird Johann. And the Laird Johann himself is an immortal, and he turns us into a slave to just satisfy his deepest desires. And eventually we have, as we are still bloodthirsty and have the skills of hand warfare, one night while lying next to him in bed, we use our knowledge of the way the anatomy works to press our thumbs into the relevant portion of his neck to kill him. We do not make him an immortal. We simply leave him for dead. We attain the skill humans are cattle, and we strike out our sister, who is the remaining mortal, as well as the original Lord Dumbarton, who had defiled our mother, and 100 years pass. Take a resource you have used for evil while in service to your former master. Well, this would be the resource that we used for evil would be, he had some very special chains in his bedroom that he liked to use, and we will take these silver chains and add them to our resources. And now we're going to move on, and we will move up one. Horrified at your new nature, you withdraw from society. Where do you hide? How do you feel? Create a stationary resource which shelters you. Well, we escape this castle, and we make our way to a village, and with our never-ending supply of, or never-ending for right now, supply of potions and mushrooms and things, we set up shop as an apothecary. And the stationary resource that we have is for our shelter is our little apartment above the apothecary shop where we live. So we show up as a kind of healer woman, and we have as a stationary resource the place that we are living there above the apothecary. And then we're going to move on, and we're going to stay here. You reinvent your existence around the seclusion of your hiding place. You begin to work in an artful way, changing your living environment. How do you come to appreciate beauty or craft in a new way? Create a skill based on a memory. Now, I realize one thing I've been failing to do here is noting down these experiences in my memory. So the experience of being enslaved, as it were, to the Laird Johann and escaping, that is going to be into my power again. And we're soon going to need to put that whole series of memories into a diary if we're to continue, because that's the third memory in that spot. As we as we stay here, it says the seclusion of our hiding place. Well, it wasn't exactly withdrawn from society, I suppose. So we'll have to just revisit that apothecary and place. Perhaps instead we set up shop remotely in the woods somewhere. But word of our presence gets out in the town. So people do come occasionally to see us, and we transform our living place in this forest area into a almost magical spiritual source of power that we are creating, working our magic with nature in such a way that we're like a witchy vampire, and the natural environment, the ley lines of the land are incorporated into this spot that becomes the source of mysticism and almost getting back to our struggle to do good in the world. And the memories that we have of doing this are happy ones, and so that is going to fill the third happy slot of the creation of our home, our spiritual home, which is also a physical home. And the skill based on this memory is going to be a skill of, we're going to call it spirituality, to the extent that that is going to be considered a skill. All right, and now it's time to move forward again, and we're going to move forward 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A mortal character begins serving you. Who are they? Why are they drawn to you? Create a new mortal character. Well, this is going to be easy. The new mortal character, as we are here in the woods, we will encounter a let's say another young worker from a nearby farm, and he is intrigued by us, drawn to us perhaps in a way, and he, over the course of time, helps us, begins to serve us as our assistant almost. And this experience is going to go into our survival theme, that we now have this almost an assistant, and his name is going to be Jim. We'll call him Jim. We don't really know much about him, but he is drawn to us and he helps us. He is going to be helping us. And now we're going to move forward another 4, and suddenly we find time spinning away, the stars pinwheel above you in the night, the seasons are a blur, you are as an automaton, unconscious of the passage of decades. A century passes, strike out a memory, strike out all mortal characters. So Jim made a very quick appearance here, and the memories that we're losing are the memories of our happy memories here of the original Henry and our mother, and the creation of that spiritual home where we lived for just a brief moment of time in this story that's being told. But it was a brief moment of happiness, and now it is gone, and we're going to need to move on. And regrettably, I'm going to stop here, at least with the video, because I'm getting to the kind of outside length of videos that I tend to post. This game is really so easy to get into and so involving. And as you could see, this was all done just on the fly, and I really feel like I have this character, and I am going to continue on my own to play this character of Annie, who is now, what did she turn into? Catherine. She rose up over time. Hundreds of years have passed, and she came out of this tortured past where she turned her mother into an immortal. She turned against her friend, those who tried to help her, but she was born out of violence, and she doomed really into this world as a tortured being, and found just a momentary happiness in our story where she became a spiritual a spiritual witch almost in the woods, providing medicinal offerings to the town in a kind of reparative way almost, where she sought perhaps some redemption for herself. But the game took that away. It was all fleeting because the very next roll, it was gone. It was just a memory, the memory of her happiness, the experiences of her long ago friendship with Henry, of her relationship to her mother, and of the creation of that home wiped away. And she now continues on with her active memories of what she has done to maintain power in the world, to survive in the world, and the things that she has left, the skills she's left as a bloodthirsty person who views humans as cattle, but she still has this lingering aspect of spirituality that hasn't left her yet, even though the physical space that she had occupied in the positive witchy realm that she inhabited for a moment still exists. So she has the lingering skill, but nothing else. Thousand-Year-Old Vampire is the winner of 3 Annie Awards in 2020, and it is not hard to see why. It is a absolutely wonderfully executed journaling RPG that will provide you with so many prompts, and you can see how on each one. So we've got in the 70 some odd prompts here in the main game. Well, we have 80 here, and they have 3 offerings each, and then we have a whole other appendix of prompts. So there is a ton of replayability to this game, and of course what you yourself start out with is going to determine the replayability, even if you use the exact same prompts, because I started out with my character of a very specific character of Annie, the born into the croft house of this estate under bad circumstances. You could start out very, very differently, a million different ways, obviously. Cannot recommend this game enough. It is beautifully produced as a physical object and as a creative, imaginative enterprise. It is so well executed. Well, I ran out of power and memory in filming that last part, and if you watch my channel enough, you know that that tends to happen most when I'm super engaged with something. And this game has a total engagement factor. It is really, really involving, and as I said, I am not somebody who plays journaling games. I typically don't actually like writing prompts in my RPGs because I usually find them inhibitory in terms of actually thinking about my own story, because I've just managed to develop that on my own. But here it really works. The theme is one of a long life and an immortal person that is married very well with the notion or the idea of prompts and just like almost teasing out the memories and the stories from an old being, and it works really, really well. The other point I'll say about this, beyond just the fact of what it is itself, is that if you are interested in other types of solo RPG play, and by other types I mean not journaling games, but the other kinds of things that I present on the channel, I think that playing this type of game is a really great exercise in being more comfortable, just as I flip through and show you some of the illustrations that are in this book, is a great way of kind of flexing your narrative muscles and feeling comfortable in working without a particular type of script or any script at all, and in creating a story that you then have to let go, because as you saw in the gameplay example that I gave, you can be really invested in something and then you just have to let it go and move on. And that doesn't have to be the end of a story. It can just be then become the middle of a story and continue on. And I think with solo RPGing, when trying to work with other kinds of rule sets, with tabletop RPGs that are not journaling based, that are not writing based, that can be a real obstacle and concern for people, that to try to have a concern about having to create a narrative and then let go of it and not knowing where to go. And here with the prompts, of course, you have a landing place because you're moving forward or back in the book and you're going to be landing at another question, at another prompt to move that on. When playing other types of games, you can do this for yourself and create those stories out of questions that you ask yourself. It's much more abstract, of course, and it's like being on a tightrope without any kind of a net. But this is in addition to being just a fantastic, fantastic game, period. It, I think, is a great exercise for people who want to become more comfortable using other types of RPG rule sets to play solo. So I hope you've enjoyed this peek inside the beginning decades, or actually it was a couple of 100 years, of that she who started out as Annie the charwoman. And as always, thanks for watching.